All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I am Jennifer Lucero. I am the Outreach Navigator with the Department of Higher Ed. Thank you so much for joining us on your lunch break today. We value your time and hope that you get a lot out of today's discussion. I will pass it over to Sophie to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sophie Vogel. I am the CASFA coordinator. I look forward to talking to you all about financial aid. And of course, please know if you have any CASFA related questions, I am your contact. My contact information will be shared throughout, just making sure you think of me when you think you have a CASFA concern. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. Excellent. All right. I am going to, our FAFSA coordinator was unavailable today, so I am going to go ahead and do our FAFSA updates. Share my screen here.
Looks good, Jen.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Again, I'm Jennifer Lucero with these FAFSA updates. First and foremost, if you have not heard, the FAFSA Deadline Act was passed. And this is fantastic because that's that firm deadline of October 1st. From now on, they must have the FAFSA released by that date. However, we are seeing some changes taking place. We're starting to see those changes occur based on the new administration. One of them, for instance, is question number 11, the gender question. This has been changed on the 24-25 and the 25-26. So if students completed the FAFSA before February 14th, no problem. They do not have to go in and make any corrections. However, I do want to mention if the student does have other corrections that are popping up for them, then they will be forced to answer that question again. They will only have a male and female to answer from. The non-binary has been removed, and so has the prefer not to answer. I should mention that the FAFSA Simplification Act does require students to respond to this question. However, back, of course, last year they had the prefer not to answer option, and now they do not have that. I do also want to let you know that the 26-27 draft is available for public comment. So if that's something that you would want to take a look at and make those comments, I encourage you to go to this website and just check it out and yeah, leave your comments if possible. As of right now, nationally, we are at 31% submission, or I should say completion, sorry. Colorado is at 27.3%, so we're not trending too far behind the national percentage. Nationally, I got this information from NCAN, and this was actually last week. Colorado's number I got from our FAFSA completion tool, which was updated on Monday. So this is the latest and greatest percentage. If you would like to track how your school is doing, you can go to this website. This is the Colorado FAFSA completion tool that we have. If you want more detailed information so that you can help students specifically, and your district does not have the data share agreement, please reach out to this email, fafsa@dhe.state.co.us, and we can get you that, or get you the data share agreement so that you can have access to that really specific information that could help your school increase that completion. Just want to let you know that there are some events coming up. We are having our educator financial aid training next week. That's next Friday at Adams State University. If you have any colleagues in the area, please let them know about this. We did it last week in Greeley at Ames, and it was a really great event. Everyone got a whole lot of information out of it. We will also be having our next Lunch and Learn next month, March 12th. These QR codes will take you straight to the registrations for those events. And then don't forget, if you are having an event and you need some extra help, whether it be FAFSA, CASFA presentations, or even help with completion, you can reach out to us at that email. And this QR code will take you to our event request form. We've created these toolkits so that you have access to resources that can help you with your students and their families complete the FAFSA or the CASFA. They are in both English and Spanish. And again, I'm Jennifer Lucero. If there is anything I can do to help, please feel free to reach out to either of these emails.
Jennifer, you're terrific. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I mention we are planning to do questions at the end of this Lunch and Learn. So I'm going to go ahead with my presentation now. I have a few slides to share as well. So thank you. And I'm going to do the same thing. Share my screen, pull up my slides, all that fun. So I want to talk a little bit about FAFSA and CASFA. So one of the things that we talk about is PII. PII stands for personally identifiable information. So in terms of CASFA data collected, the statement that I have here in italics is a statement directly from the Colorado Department of Higher Education. This is a statement you can share with your stakeholders, you know, students, families, etc. Colorado was saying, we're focused on ensuring people can feel safe on campus. We're working with institutions, and while we don't yet know how the change in administrations will impact higher education in Colorado, every student deserves the opportunity to learn, and we remain committed to supporting our institutions of higher education as well as all students and educators. In addition, I want to point out specifically in terms of PII that the CDHE also adheres to FERPA, which is Family Educational Right and Privacy Act, which is a federal law that protects the privacy of student educational records. Another interesting piece about having personally identifiable information or information that you share with the state of Colorado or a student shares is it's also protected by Senate Bill 21-131. So that protects PII that the state keeps. So any information that someone submits along with a CASFA that goes to the state of Colorado, and then of course directly to financial aid offices at institutions. And so that information is protected by FERPA, that PII, and it's also protected by SB 21-131. So that could potentially help in your conversations moving forward. So next slide, I'm going to talk about what NCAN shares. They're the National College Attainment Network, and they're really doing terrific work. So I highly encourage anyone who has any questions about the current scope to take a look at NCAN. So NCAN stated, we believed mixed status families should make a considered decision about whether to submit identifying information to the federal government in a FSA ID or FAFSA. This guidance may be particularly relevant to mixed status families who would be participating in the federal aid application process for the first time. NCAN understands the grave ramifications of this guidance and deeply regrets that we feel it is necessary to issue it. So this is pretty big information from National College Attainment Network. When I say big, I mean, I think unexpected for the educational landscape and for people who are working in financial aid. A few important things I want to point out is I want to talk about the definition of a mixed status family. In this context, a mixed status family, what they're referring to is immigration status. So you could say mixed immigration status family. Typically, in terms of FAFSA, what that refers to is a student who is a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, and then their parent is undocumented. In that case, that family is considered a mixed status family. So a little more information about this from some other organizations that are exercising leadership nationally about how to support students. So the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration has a FAFSA messaging template. So they answer questions about what, when, how of FAFSA data security. So they're helping make sure everyone understands what's going on with that. They also, on their template, they have some great resources. Sorry, near sneeze. Conversation tips, specifically how to reassure students about eligibility for federal aid. So listening and addressing security concerns, respect student privacy and avoid asking status. I'm just going to clarify on this. So if you are an educator and you have the privilege of working with students, it is very important that you avoid directly asking about a student's immigration status, their parents' immigration status, that sort of thing. It's essential that you as an educator know that the student can share that with you. However, you can't ask that of them. So other conversation tips, answer questions and consult, talk to alternative aid, talk about alternative aid sources, and then other resources. So please use the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration as another resource, because they are terrific and they are keeping on top of the quickly changing landscape. Some more pieces of information. So the U.S. Department of Education shared that federal student aid funds are not frozen. So if you all remember, there was some guidance about pausing federal programs. However, the Office of Management and Budget rescinded its January 27th guidance about pausing federal financial assistance programs. So federal student aid, like direct a direct loan or a Pell Grant, are not impacted by this initial guidance. And the U.S. Department of Education is continuing to award and disperse federal student aid. So I think that's a big question that we got at Ames, that people are continuing to ask, oh, do Pell Grants even exist? Does the U.S. Department of Education exist? So telling people that yes, the U.S. Department of Education is continuing to award and disperse federal student aid is important. Another fun piece is more information from NCAN. NCAN was talking about remaining steadfast in their mission to support students and ensure that financial aid remains accessible. The most important thing we can do right now is provide clear, accurate information to students and families about their option and encourage them to complete the FAFSA as it is still available. Regardless of policy changes, financial aid remains in place, and we must continue to working to ensure students don't miss out on the support they need. So that I think is really helpful as well. And honestly, that's it for the guidance that I have. There's my contact information. I will share more contact information, short and sweet, but the landscape is changing fast and it's hard to keep on top of. So when you all have questions, we at the state, we're a resource, we can help you out. So let me just check my agenda, see what we're doing next.
Thanks, Sophie. That's great information.
We received some questions in our registration, and we're going to go ahead and share those questions and talk about their answers. And I was planning on doing it earlier, so sorry I forgot. I wanted to say a question that I got specifically in the registration was, how does FAFSA get impacted with the current political climate? Students with undocumented parents are asking if it is still safe to fill out the FAFSA. Is the information on the FAFSA still safe? So I just wanted to point out those questions are very important, and that's what the presentation that I just shared was, answers to those questions. And so then one more fun piece to consider is there's no yes or no, right? It's very complicated. So helping your students navigate that is really important. So here is one of the questions we received. Jennifer, do you want me to ask the question or do you want to go for it?
Oh, yeah, I can. I want to learn the general process, but also specific populations like migrants, highly mobile students, and foster students. And I don't know if any of you joined us last month, but we did have our post-secondary options navigators on to discuss a couple of these programs. In Colorado here, we do have the Office of Migrant Education. So if you are trying to help a particular student who needs that type of assistance, you could always visit that website. We also have migrant education program. So very important to look into the details of those before you start helping students, however. Here at the Department of Higher Ed for highly mobile students, we just passed the Empower Ed program. This is a program that does help students who have experienced homelessness. And then we've also got the foster ed program for students who've experienced foster care. We also got the question, FAFSA process for incarcerated youth. This is something that our post-secondary options navigators have been helping with quite a bit in the field, and they're getting a lot of benefits out of this, both of them. So more than likely, they will be filling out the paper FAFSA unless they happen to have access to technology, which I know Sophie and I have been to some of these events where we try to help them, and they just don't have, like, all of them don't have access to Wi-Fi. And, you know, it's one of my pain points, actually, in particular, that there's not a particular process for incarcerated youth or for incarcerated students in general. But help with that paper FAFSA if you can. Dependency status is going to depend on that student's circumstance. So if they have an unusual circumstance, of course, they can have that provisional independent status. We did receive an email from the Assistant Director of Prison Programs, and they did mention that spouses or no, if you are helping an incarcerated student fill out their FAFSA or CASFA, you should not be contacting anyone for them outside of that. They'll either be able to contact them or they'll have that independent, that provisional independent status, but please do not, I know it's hard not to help them. We all want to help them, but that actually is not allowed. And so please don't do that.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm going to tackle question number 3 we received, which is undocumented students who do not live with parents, but parents still have custody. So I'm sure it was posed in the form of a question, but for undocumented students who aren't U.S. citizens and also are not eligible non-citizens, defined by federal student aid, defines who is an eligible non-citizen. Those students who we consider undocumented students, or sometimes we call them documented, those students are going to complete a CASFA. That's a state aid application. And then, so the next question, or the next answer sort of refers to students who do not live with parents, but parents still have custody. So the first thing I wanted to point out was dependency status. Generally speaking, students are dependent until about age 24, regardless of where the student lives. So if the student lives in an apartment close to campus or on campus or whatever the situation is, that student is likely still a dependent student, and that parent is likely still required to provide information on the financial aid application. There are, of course, unusual circumstances, like Jennifer just mentioned. If the reason for the student and parent not living together has anything to do with, abuse or neglect, or there's any court documentation or anything like that, it is different. But if the parents have custody and the student lives on campus, the parent is still definitely considered the contributor, and the student is still a dependent student. So just moving on to the next question. The person said they had never heard of CASFA and they wanted to know about parent information for FAFSA credentials. So CASFA stands for Colorado Application for State Financial Aid, and it's a financial aid application for students who aren't eligible for federal student aid. So again, U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens as defined by federal student aid, they're the ones who are eligible for federal student aid. If a student isn't in those categories, then they are going to complete a CASFA because they are because that's the eligibility for CASFA. A few other things about the FSA ID or the studentaid.gov account. Contributors will need to have their own email address, name as it appears on their social security card or other, legal name on documentation, their date of birth, their address, and of course, all of this information is really essential that the match is precise, right? So no typos in the address, etc. Everything needs to be correct. Work with your students if your students are moving fast or if you have any concerns about accuracy, because making a mistake here will make everything take longer. I also presume that the question was really about mixed status families, so the contributors don't have a social security number. So families who submitted a 24-25 FAFSA, already, if they already submitted it already, they don't have any additional risk if they submit a 25-26 FAFSA, right? Because they already have an FSA ID or a studentaid.gov account. So using it again doesn't pose additional risk. However, for mixed status families, I'm just going to quote what NCAN said. I know I already read it. We believe mixed status families should make a considered decision about whether to submit identifying information to the federal government in an FSA ID, which is also known as a studentaid.gov account, or a FAFSA. And with that, Jennifer and I have actually made it to the end of our presentation, and we would love to talk to you all and answer your questions. If you want, we can just take questions in the chat for now, and you're also welcome to come off mute if you wanted. Whatever sort of communication you are most comfortable with, we're fine with. And there's no rush. If you need a minute to gather your thoughts, to ask your questions, that's totally fine.
That is a lot of information in a short amount of time, so we completely understand. It's also very important information, especially at this particular time. Yeah. Hi, Darren. You have a question?
Hi, I do actually. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good to see you.
You can? Oh, okay. I just had some sound problems with my computer. I want to make sure you hear me. Hi, Sophie. So the information you gave us at the beginning regarding the 31% nationally for FAFSA, that's for the 25-26 FAFSA, right? I'm assuming that's not for 24-25. It is? Okay. Because I know we're having a all on board FAFSA workshop here. I think Jason Crow is sponsoring that, or he will be. So we're trying to get a lot more students to complete their FAFSAs. And I have a big event also over at the, I can remember the name of that building. It's right down here on First Avenue in Center Tech. We're public schools. It's going to be a district-wide FAFSA workshop for those who want to get their 25-26 done. So that'll be open to anyone who wants to come in and get their FAFSA done. So I was just curious about that. I kind of wanted to see where Colorado was.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, because I do believe Dr. Paccioni is going to be there. Some of our navigators are going to be there to help with assistance. So that's going to be a good event. It'll be good. Yeah, very big.
Totally. And CASFAs too. If people need help with their CASFAs, they can come in for that too. So yep. It'll be, I think it'll be busy. It'll be fun. So I did have another question though. You talked about at the beginning concerning the FAFSA update. Real quick, what's this about? I'm sorry, I missed part of it about the gender question that are they changing that on the FAFSA? So they're not allowed to ask that anymore. I'm just kind of.
It's not that it's not allowed. It's that they're only allowing for two answers, either male or female. And so they've taken away the non-binary or the prefer not to answer even. They took that away. The only students at this point who should be affected are those that need to make corrections. If they go in to make a correction, it's going to force them to answer that question again.
Okay. But it doesn't even give you the option to say, I prefer not to answer. You have to say male or female. Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's all the questions I had for right now.
Thanks, Darren.
Oh, yeah, one other question. I know, can the PowerPoint be shared if we request a copy of the PowerPoint? I know there wasn't just a whole lot of slides, but there was a lot of good information. I was just wondering if we could Or if I
No,
needed to
thanks for
have that.
bringing that up. Lucy was
Yeah.
asking too. And all of this information will be posted on the website, and I can share that link with you. I'll gather everyone's email after this and send the
Okay.
link to you guys.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. Do you want me to read that out loud, Sophie? I know specific financial aid award letters come directly from the colleges, the student indicated on their application, but do students get notified if they qualify for a Pell Grant? Do they get an email, or is it up to the student to go in and look at their summary online? So the students should, after they submit their FAFSA, they get that email, but I always advise students to be proactive after they've submitted that and keep logging into their portal, see if their SAI is there, and then that they can determine their submission summary should be in their portal. And so they should, I don't know if they'll get an email or not. Some say they do, some say they don't. So I wouldn't rely on emails.
Thank you. I'm going to read Dallas's second question. Thanks, Jennifer, of course. And Dallas, great questions. I have some Dallas shared, I have some students who didn't seem to know they qualified for a Pell Grant until I showed them how to see their submission summary. Yes, absolutely. Great point. Please help your students understand how financial aid works, because they're newer than any of you, right? They're brand new to financial aid. So I think usually students get a lot of emails from FAFSA, and I think that often they're confusing. CASFA, we send less emails, but students are also confused about those too. So yes, always encourage your student to go into their portal and then to check their submission summary, to check their SAI, all that sort of stuff. Those are great questions and sort of pointers. Dallas, if you want to share anything else about showing them how to find their submission summary, we're open to that as well. I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes. I do just want to point out that I shared the registration form in the chat for the Aurora Public Schools event that Darren mentioned. So I shared it at 12:30, and of course I can share it again. But you're welcome to complete that form to register, to have your students register, etc., for that event. And then I see Dallas said, it took me a few minutes to find, but I think they find it under my activity. Yeah, I think that sounds exactly right. Jen, you would know better than I, but yes, helping your students remember that they're going to be completing financial aid applications for, probably 4 years, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 2. So getting to know these websites is really important. Thank you. I'm going to read Ariana's chat. Thanks, Ariana. We help students who specifically have mild to moderate disabilities for a Student to Work Alliance program. For our post-secondary youth, will we need to find someone else that can accommodate their intellectual needs to fill out the FAFSA or CASFA? Will we need to find someone else that can? Great question. Jennifer, I have a little bit of guidance, and then Jennifer, please share. So there used to be a part of, before the Better FAFSA, there was a part of the financial aid application that said, are you a preparer? And that was always very confusing to students and people who worked at the Department of Corrections and all that sort of stuff. That question is no longer part of the financial aid application. So it's no longer asked, are you a preparer? So in terms of assistance, if you and your team are able to provide that assistance, I don't believe you'll need to find anyone else. Are you looking for resources in terms of who else could potentially help you? Is that right, Ariana?
Or perhaps you may even want maybe a deep dive into FAFSA and CASFA for your team, so that then you could, you know, take that information and help your students that way. Nope, no toe stepping here, step away.
Totally agree, Jen. No toes stepped on at all. And also, just a reminder to everyone, perhaps Ariana, perhaps everyone else, I just shared in the chat our event request form. So CDHE, we are able to accommodate, well, really as many event requests that we can. Obviously, we have some limitations. However, if you wanted a training for your team of 10 individuals or whatever the case is, sometimes we're able to accommodate those requests, and we always try to. So yourself, your high school, whoever, whatever group you're from, you're welcome to use our outreach event request form, which is also in the chat. And we can help you as much as possible. Jen, I'm thinking maybe a few more minutes and then we'll head out. Yeah, Dallas says thanks. So we really
Absolutely.
appreciate all of your commitment to supporting your students and communities with financial aid. Please know that we are a resource. Please use your other resources. And we look forward to seeing you on March 12th. Am I doing that wrong,
Nope,
Jennifer?
that's right.
Yeah. Great.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Go get some lunch.